Welcome to the Manna at the Tap podcast as we embark on a shared journey looking into the spiritual nourishment we need for our souls. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual path. As a community, we'll explore our daily manna, offering insights and interpretations to foster our spiritual growth. Today, Wednesday, June the 19th, 2024, we are in the fourth week after Pentecost, and our focus is on Luke chapter 6, verses 43 to 45. Luke 6 opens on a Sabbath day as Jesus and his disciples pass through a grain field. The disciples are hungry and they pick enough grain to satisfy their hunger. The Pharisees accuse them of breaking the Sabbath by reaping the grain. It seems so ridiculous to Jesus that he reminded them of an incident when David and his men were hungry and they ate the bread that was only supposed to be consumed by the priest. On another Sabbath, when Jesus entered the synagogue, he saw a person with a shriveled right hand. The Pharisees were again watching to see what Jesus would do. Jesus asked the question, is it right or wrong to do good or evil, save or destroy life? There was no response. So he told the person to stretch out their hand, and their hand was completely restored. This infuriated the Pharisees, who began considering what to do with Jesus. Jesus then took a Sabbath, a day off to pray. And when he returned, he chose his 12 designated apostles. There are two moments of beatitudes in the gospel. One is in Matthew, where Jesus is sitting on a mountainside, and the other is here in the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus is in the midst of the crowd, standing on level ground with them, surrounded by those sick, and he healed them all. After his teaching on judging one another, Jesus begins to talk about a tree and its fruit, which is the lectionary text for today. Jesus was undoubtedly thinking of Psalm 1, verses 2 to 3, which says, the person whose delight is in the law of the Lord and who meditates on his law day and night, that person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and whose leaf does not wither, and whatever the person does prosper. Good trees bear good fruit, and harmful trees bear bad fruit. It is the fruit that will determine the condition of the tree. Jesus used the image of a tree and its fruit as a metaphor to help the disciples and the people examine the invisible tree of their hearts. Fruit is the result of who we are, and though it may take time to bring forth a harvest, the good or bad fruit will be the evidence that reveals what sort of tree we are. The opposite of bringing forth good fruit means we are the bearers of wicked, poisonous, or a tree without fruit. This leaves the gardener to cut down that tree. Jesus then challenged the people to turn inward and examine what was stored up in their hearts, because if evil is stored up in the heart, then evil will come out the mouth. And if good things are stored up in the heart, then the person's mouth is full of good. Jesus called the disciples and the people to pay attention to the fruit of their lives, their actions, and their words. How are we able to produce good fruit? We need spiritual practices that transform us with the help of God's grace. Spiritual formation occurs when we are gathered in community, we are taught, supported, and encouraged on the spiritual journey. This is where we are accountable to each other and we begin to see our hearts shaped by the threefold response of power in praise, art of prayer, and the varied postures of worship. Over time, we will become aware of the things being formed in our hearts, and we can become even more aware of what we would like that to look like. A person who does not tend to matters of the heart is often scattered in their thinking, has unrealistic expectations of others, judges others, and is angry. Romans 12, 1 and 2, in my translation of the text says, with my eyes wide open to the mercies of God, I give my heart to God. I don't want to let the world around me squeeze me into its mold, but I want to let God remold my mind from the inside out so I can practice the plan of God, which is good and which moves me to produce good fruit. We must consider our thoughts, feelings, longings, and losses. Thanks be to God's grace and mercy. There will always be others to guide us through the process. Please do not be too busy to take time for yourself. Think of yourself in the intensive care unit of your local hospital, where the focus is on your recovery. Remember, a good person brings good things out of the good stored in their heart.